Welcome to another episode of Beauty and the Priest. I'm Fiona.
And I'm Jim. And today's question is the one that every parent of a 2-year-old dreads. Why? Why? Why is the most important question that anybody could ever ask? And It's one of those questions that we need to work out for ourselves about why we do what we do and why we think what we think. So Fiona, I'll put to you first then. Why? Why is why really important?
Why is why really important? Well, it's become more important of late. We've seen a lot of things, especially from Simon Sinek, who is like probably one of the most biggest authorities on the why. He's the one that works on the why before the how before the what in marketing and sales. But we're sort of starting to look at it now and applying that to our lives. And I think it's because we've got this awakening of wanting more purpose and meaning in our lives. And to get that purpose and meaning, we can just ask, why? Why am I doing this? Why do I want this? Why? And also, but like you said, it's the dreaded question of 2-year-olds. Why holds us accountable? And I'll just quickly share a little story with you, because just as you said that, I thought of this. When my kids were little, and I was, disciplining them, I got to a point where I was wondering why I was saying, yes, you can do that, no, you can't do that, and why I was saying what I was saying to them. And I asked them to challenge me with, if I said, no, you can't, to ask me why, so that it held me accountable for why I was actually saying no. And what I found throughout that, and it was like with a respectful why, not with a why, was like, can you please explain, please explain moment, that it would come out that, well, because actually this time it's because I'm being overprotective and I don't want you to go there because I'm worried that something might happen, or I'm actually just really tired and I can't be bothered. So I was then able to just be really honest with them about, Mummy just can't be bothered at the moment, or I'm just being overprotective. So, okay, go out there and do that. But that's in that context. But applying that why to all the different parts of our life is a really good way to find the root of our heart and our motivation for things. Yeah. So that was something you weren't expecting, but yeah.
There you go. No, it's great. And it is, like I said, it is one of those questions that we all dread as parents when the kids start with that question. I actually dislike it more than no, because at least you know where you stand with no.
Yes.
No is like, okay, we're going to have an altercation here. But why really messes with you. It's like, I can't answer why right now. All I can tell you is that I need you to do it. It's bedtime, or it's time to eat your tea, or whatever. So why is, one of those questions that does sort of haunt us as parents. But for us ourselves, I think that is really one of those big questions, because when life does smash you, because it does happen sooner or later to all of us, our whys are really the center of that smashing. So all the assumptions that we've made about life up until that point are all put into question about this. And it's like, why, God? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Or am I being punished? Or why? I mean, that's all sort of comes into that, because we start questioning our own motivation and ethics, our sense of where we feel our place in the world is. But I do believe that why is really important. And as you mentioned before with Simon Sinek, he addresses that question, start with why, about engaging with people who are going to be working with you, especially with the millennials and younger generation. They need to know why. It's interesting to me, though, that when I was a soldier in the 90s, whenever we would do training, why would always be one of the first things we would start with. And it wasn't even, it was before Simon Sinek, I think, was probably even born, but it was one of those things that we would typically start with, because every soldier needs to know why, what they're about to be taught, why that's really important to them. So why is the most important thing, and for somebody to be able to answer that question for you, they need to have at least some of the answers. They need to have some of the things that are going on. So I think it's really important that we do encapsulate that for ourselves, and especially if we're talking about the why of our lives. What am I going to achieve? What am I going to be known for? There are people who talk about self-authoring programs, like where you go through and say, this is going to be the story of my life. These are the things that I want to achieve with the lifespan that I've got given to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's, starting with why in there, it's got to be big enough. When I used to run a real estate sales team, that was one of the things we used to talk about individually in our coaching would be, what's your why? What's the thing that you're doing this for? I want to do it because I want to be a millionaire. I want to be, sell a million properties and all those different things. Okay, but why? What will being a millionaire grant you that you don't currently have? Well, it opens up a whole lot of opportunities and freedoms, and I can go on holidays. Well, if you actually live through that, you'll find that's actually not enough.
Yes.
There needs to be a bigger why than just the ability of sitting on a beach or whatever else. Because technically I live within a stone's throw of people living that exact dream. And it's not really a dream for them. Just living on a beach, being homeless, can feel like the ultimate thing what a lot of people can aim for, but it's not.
No, and it's why do you want to do that? I think it's a really good point that you've made, because it's like with coaching, is peeling the onion. So what do you love about what you're doing? And it's a really, really good tool to use if you're wanting to change careers, which we've done a couple of videos on. When is it time to change and how do you change? But if you can draw, like making sure that you know who you are, that's the first step into working out your why, by knowing the who, like who are you? And that's knowing your values, your personality, your passions, exactly what are the attributes that God placed in you. That becomes a roadmap to a little bit to what. And that roadmap can lead off in a whole heap of different directions, but you've got to find the one with the why behind it. So my skills and abilities could lead me off in so many different directions, but I need to line that up with a passion, a burning inside of me that wants to do this, and find the why behind it. And I guess when you know who you are and who God made you to be, you then can line that up with your why, but then start peeling the layers of the why. Like you just said, it's like, well, because I want to be rich. But what will being rich give you? So you peel the layers. What is it about being rich that appeals to you? Well, I'll have freedom to do this, this, and this. And when you keep peeling the layers off, then you get to the core. And it's just asking those right questions, which a coach will do for you, but you can actually do it for yourself exactly the same way. And when you do get to that heart why, that's where you'll find the motivation, the inspiration, the energy, the drive, from everything from career change to little habits that you want to do. Like, I need to lose weight. I want to lose weight. Well, are you doing that because you should? These are the things that I'm using, actually. Jim taught me this. Are you doing that because you should do it, because you need to do it, or because you want to do it? And I'm using that in my coaching as well. And if it's because you should, that's not enough to get you across the line. That's not enough to drive you. It's not enough to push you. You'll find that you will
get you up at 4:30 to do that workout.
You've got, so that's like, if it's because you should, that's an extrinsic reason. It's an extrinsic motivator, but we want to find the intrinsic motivator, which is want to. And sometimes need to and want to have to go together. You've got to find the want to go with the need to. I need to lose weight because the doctor said I have fatty liver, or the doctor said there's going to be implications. So then we've got to find the want to behind the need to. I want to because I want to live. I want to because I want to be active. I want to. And it's that want to, which is your why.
Yeah, that's
you'll
right.
find. And so that's the way, like, because people, we start habits, we strive for change, but if we don't have the why, and that's what you call bulletproofing, right? You like find that thing that's going to bulletproof your goal and keep you going when you have no energy, when life keeps firing at you from all angles. That will be the thing that you write on a big piece of paper, or that you have somewhere that pings up on your phone to remind you why I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's right. And it's vital, because there will be times, as we mentioned before, there will be times where you'll be swamped. You'll be you'll be brought face to face with your biggest fears, where you'll be asking things like, why is this happening? This shouldn't happen to me because of these reasons. I've not done that. Again, as a writer that I know quite well, who's spoken about this when dealing with soldiers who have returned and have suffered PTSD and such. And their big issue is that they're, what they call it now, is a moral injury. It's because they've been asked to do things that were out of sync with their own core goals and their own personality. Their why was really challenged. And then when they look back and try to have to, or be confronted with what the things that they've done, it's like, but I'm not that. That doesn't line up with who I am. And so you've got this cognitive dissociation, and it's caused you a great deal of stress. Some people just never get beyond that, and it's really only with proper counselling that you can actually confront that and move beyond. But the why has got to be bulletproof.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that, that's a really good example of an extreme cognitive dissonance that you're saying, Liz, like that. Doing something in the army that goes against all your values and stuff. I truly believe that even in our everyday life stuff, when we're doing a job in a place that doesn't line up with our values, doing a task that doesn't line up with our skills, and for a purpose that doesn't line up with our passion, that's where we're going to experience that internal conflict. And I think it's a conflict between mind and spirit. And like just from a sort of spiritual level. And that's what I believe caused, like when I used to suffer from depression, I honestly think it's that internal, and I'm not applying this because I'm not a qualified psychiatrist or anything like that, but it was when I started lining up my life and my choices and my lifestyle and my job with Fiona and who she is and what she is made up to be, all of that stuff started disappearing.
That's right.
And owning who you are. And I think that, and I'm sort of veering off more into just a different area of that, but embracing everything about yourself, because what we can tend to do is go, well, I'm trying to fit into this category because it looks good from the outside, but that's not what you were built to do. But you're comparing yourself and going, well, why can't I do it because she can and because he can and because they're like this? Well, God didn't make you to do that. So find what it is that God made you to do and find your success, your fulfillment and your happiness in that. And steering it back to that, like what you're talking about, that why. So we've covered the why behind what we do and what drives us. But then there's that other side that's more the stuff coming in, not going out, which is the why did that happen to me? Why did God let this happen? Why is this going on around me? Why is the world so hard? That's a whole different story, isn't it?
Yeah. And the easiest place to look at for that, the first thing I think about is having a car accident. When you're confronted with that vehicle being where it shouldn't be, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. It's this, but why? What have I done wrong? I haven't changed down my lane. I'm doing everything right. Why has this happened? Like, it should not happen. And depending on where you are in the headspace initially, it can be like, no, I disagree.
If I had just left
you can disagree all you like, the car's still run into you.
Why didn't I leave 5 minutes earlier? Why didn't I leave 5 minutes later? Why didn't I spend more time with this family member before they passed away? Why did this happen? And there's so many things, and you had this conversation about why do bad things happen and where's God when bad things happen? And can you just plug your podcast for that story? Because I think it's really an important one.
Sure, we can put that in a link below if you want to have a look at that.
Yeah, cool. It's the punchline, right? You've got this, because there's like a priest, a pastor, all walk into a bar. So they're the punchline. So I'll leave a link for that, because that they discuss it deeply around where's God when bad things happen? And that's a really valid question, and not one that we're going to unpack today or we can answer, because God is God. But I think it's also really important that and this is a conversation we've had, that when bad things do happen to either you or other people, and you're asking that why, is to be careful not to over spiritualize it by going, oh, but it happens for a reason, or they lived a good life, or all that other stuff, because I don't think that's helpful in that moment that you're in. It's something that we can definitely reflect on down the track when we've come through it. But it kind of takes away and devalues what that person or what yourself is going through in that moment. And I think it's okay to just go, like, why is this happening? This sucks.
Yeah.
And not try to answer it. Because we don't have, we sometimes, and more often than not, don't have the answer when it's been an external thing that's happened to us, not a choice that we've made. We can clearly find the why behind that, because I made a very bad choice, right? That's why that happened. But when it's nothing that you've done, I think here's my way to handle that. And that is, here's what I do. I'm saying, I'm not telling you this is your way, but I just allow the sadness and the emotions of that moment, or of that thing that's happened, to just, to be sad about it, to be angry about it, to be whatever I need to be about it. And sometimes not try and work out why, because I can do my own head in by working out why, but just let it be what it is, and just feel the feelings around it until I'm ready to move on to how am I going to move out the other side of this? How am I going to motivate myself? How am I going to pick myself up? How am I going to press into God in this moment as well? I'm not going to ask him why this happened, but just go, I'm going to need your help here, because I can't do this on my own. That's my thing. And being mindful, if you're watching this, to when somebody else is going through grief over loss of anything, or something bad happening to them, whether it's somebody has passed away, or they've lost their job, or they've hurt themselves, or whatever it is, had a breakup, is to just be there with them, not try and explain it, not try and push them through to the other side while they're in the midst of it. Just go
moralize it, or
just go, that must be so sad, that must feel crap, what do you need from me? And what they don't need from you is for you to explain how, oh, God will use this for good, or how, we know that.
Sure, they don't need a lecture. I would have thought that's the perfect time to get a lecture about that. It's often been said that Australia is the great religion of Australia is sport, and I might lament that, but that's simply part of Australian culture. And I think one of the things that we can really talk about in that space is that sport is where we learn to deal with some of those things that we would have traditionally learned through church. How to deal with loss. You can be ready for your team all year and it's going great. And even if you're not playing in that team, that just might be your team, that your room's decked up in their colours, and several generations have barracked for that team, and you finally get to the finals, and then you lose. And it's just that grief, that palpable agony. But you do get to experience that together with everybody else who is part of that team. And that catharsis that comes from that is really helpful, and that does sort of help us get through that time. And I can wish that was the sort of thing we experienced in church a lot more, but the fact that is really what we experience in a sporting group.
And look, it is human nature to, and especially if you're a comforter, a helper, as part of your human nature, there are specific personality types that want to make people feel better. I'm one of those people that I actually have to try really, really hard not to coach you out of your grief. So because I'm a problem solver, I'm a fixer, I'm an encourager, and I have to really, I have to force myself not to do that. Like, that just does not come naturally to me, to just be there with someone in their grief. I want to fix it. And it's not helpful, and it's never been helpful. So I guess, one, just recognize that part. If you are that kind of person, it's not a bad thing. That's a beautiful thing that you want to help and you want to encourage and you want to nurture, but it's not helpful in that moment. So save that for later, when they're ready to come out the other side of the grief, and just apply the habit of just, oh, that must suck, or that must feel horrible. What do you need? What can I do for you? And sometimes what you can do for them is just to be there in silence while they cry. Just hold them. Just, the other day, a friend of mine rang up that she was having a really hard day, and I am never silent. You may have noticed that I talk a lot. I was aware, I just became very hyper aware of my nature and went, just be quiet, Fiona. And we just sat there. She said nothing and I said nothing, but I was there for her on the phone. And as uncomfortable as that was for me, because it's like, okay, silence, how do I break the silence? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. It was so helpful, and you could feel and see in our silence is where like the Holy Spirit can come and do the work as well. Like you can just silently pray for that person. But yeah, just be there, not try to fix it.
Yeah, I think it's really important. But I guess coming back to what we're talking about, the whole why, when we're thinking about it ourselves, we do need to really examine that. When I did management training back in the 90s again, one of the things that we were talking about there in college was this idea of when you're negotiating to get to the why and find your why. And often that can be you need to ask 7 times why and get those answers. And then you're saying, no, okay, why that though? Oh, it's this. And often you can't get to 7. Usually it's around 4 or 5 that the other person's threatening violence to you. It's not just sick of hearing you ask why. But it is one of those questions that we really do need to think about. And we need to think about, well, what is appropriate to have as a center that we can stand on and go, this is my why. That is quite easy for me to answer because as a Christian, I know that what I stand on is the promises of God. That is what faith is for me. That is my central why.
Anchor.
But everybody does need to find a why, but it needs to be something that is so central for what they are and really can't be sort of messed with. Because somebody messing with your why is really, really uncomfortable. And it's something that can cause that cognitive dissociation that can lead people to do all sorts of really crazy things. So,
And people aren't the only one that'll mess with your why. Here's what to watch out for when you have bulletproofed yourself. And especially if it's a calling. So we've got there's different, you don't just have one why, by the way, but it's the why is the root of the other whys as well, as like that anchor that you were talking about, right? And things that will get in the way are obviously, if you're a Christian, you know there's a God and there's an enemy, right? And whenever God is working great wonders in your life, the enemy's going to be trying to tear it out from underneath your feet. So the voices in your head, the messages saying you can't do that, external and internal voices saying you can't do that, that's not going to work, or that's a stupid thing, or whatever it is, those voices are, well, the enemy is just trying to pull you down. But those voices that you hear that are human voices, that are people voicing their opinion, they're basing their opinion on their internal reference system. They couldn't possibly know what God has called you to do, what you have worked out about yourself and your why. They are basing theirs on, I couldn't do that. So they say, you can't do that. So what they're projecting is like, they cannot possibly wrap their head around it. So they're going, you can't do that. This will go wrong. That'll go wrong. It's like, yeah, well, you know what? Life goes wrong all the time, but I'm going to keep pressing forward in faith that this is what I'm meant to be doing. And so be mindful of those internal and external voices that want to try and pull the rug out from you, and even well-meaning voices that are like, you know, I know parents that have told their kids they shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. They should do this because there's more money there. There's better prestige there. And because the well-meaning parents want what's best for their kid. Well, you have another well-meaning parent, and that's God, and he knows what's best for you based on how he made you. That's right. So your internal reference system, your values, your personality, your passions, your experiences, this is all how God knit you together in your mother's womb. It says it in the Bible. And so those are the things that you use to get you to your why. And then you start peeling off those layers to say, but what is it? What is it? Does it line up with my values? Does it line up with this? And that's where you find that anchor. And just one thing from a coaching perspective, if you're asking somebody else why, if you're trying to get that, trying to avoid the word why, we learn that in coaching, because why can sound like an accusation and can kind of put people, so it's like, what about that? What is it about that makes, or what is it about that you think, or tell me more about that? What could be the reason for that? So we use other language to uncover and unearth. And sometimes why is the only word you can actually use in that particular situation. But we try to use other phrases. What is it about that? What do you think, yeah. So
yeah, and I do think it's important for us to think about a goal that is actually big enough.
Yeah.
Because so often we can set these little step goals and they might feel like that's it. And often when we're younger, it's like, if I got to that, I would just generally be happy.
Yeah.
That's just what we often think about when we're a bit younger. It's like, if I had that, then things would be great. If I had that car, if I did this thing, or went on that holiday, I'd actually be a lot more happy. No, you don't understand. That would actually make me happy. And you think, okay, let's see how it works out for you. But it's interesting that if you have a why that is so big, there was a person I was coaching some years ago, and what they come to me with, and they said, I've worked out what I want to do with my life, and I want your help to get me there. And I said, great, that's ideal. Let's start with that, because that's where we were starting from. I thought, this is ideal. And their view, their calling that they felt in their life is that they'd been moved so much by seeing children in poverty that they had decided what they wanted to do is to have 1 million children rescued from poverty. That's what they wanted to do. And so we set together in a way that actually might happen within their lifetime, and how they could actually measure that and see that was an achievable goal. The sad thing for me on that is, of course, that person didn't go on to do that. We found a way that would actually happen, and that would be achieved within their lifetime, God willing, of course, that they would be able to do that. But there's certainly ways to do that. But the why needs to be really anchored with something that you are, that you really want to do. Like,
that you can't really not do it.
Is it really, is that your why because you want other people to speak well of you? Is that why? Is that really your why? Or is the why that so deeply that you can't imagine children living in poverty that badly? Whereabouts in that why? Because there will be, if you anchor yourself to that. I think Rick Warren's got a book out there called Purpose Driven Life that really talks about those things, and really refining your purpose, why you're here. That's really one of those spaces. So spend time. You may not even get it in one sitting. You may not even get it in a decade of time contemplating your why. But if you can really refine it, it will actually change your life. You'll be able to do things, and you'll set aside things that are simply distractions from your real core why.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I love that. And I guess, so just wrapping up and just recapping on what we've spoken about, we've got our internal why and the external things that happen to us, and just making sure you find the intrinsic motivator. Like, extrinsic motivators aren't enough to hold you in that space. And like Jim said, is to dream big. Like, I had a vision 13 years ago that was so big it scared the bejingies out of me. And then I heard God say, it's a big vision, but I'm a big God, right? And so dream big. And I think some of our goals actually limit us and limit God working in our lives as well. So dream big, think big, because God's a big God and he can make anything. And if you don't do it, it'll get passed on to somebody else. God will achieve his goals regardless of whether you get out of bed today or not. So don't put so much pressure on yourself, but excite yourself by the possibility of being part of something way bigger than yourself. And kingdom building, I think, is a really important. Is this building the kingdom somehow by helping children in poverty, or, ministering to women that are abused, or, going out on the streets and helping homeless, or even if it doesn't need to be huge life-changing stuff. It might be just having that conversation with your friend and being there for them in that moment. That's all kingdom building stuff, right? That's all part of the bigger picture. And that's the stuff that really fills our heart with purpose and meaning. So if you've got any questions or comments about this video, we would love to answer them. Jim and I are filled with wisdom, but if we don't know it, we'll find it for you anyway. So I will leave the links to the Rick Warren book,
Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why.
Simon Sinek's book, and your podcast, The Punchline, because there's a lot of gold in that as well. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you next time. Have you got any final words, Jim, before I wrap up?
Don't be afraid of really spending some time thinking about what your why is going to be.
Yeah.
Really think about it and really spend some time, because it won't be time unspent well, if that's such a thing. It'll be time spent well. And
don't be scared by your why or vision that, you know, that's been placed on your heart, because I've been there, it doesn't work well. So just know that you don't have to make it all happen, because God's the one that is the author and orchestrator of everything. You just need to show up. You just need to know what it is and let him do the rest, let him do the heavy lifting. Yeah.
True.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Beauty and the Priest. We will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.